Today we'll look at the best weapons in all game modes. And before we start, I would like to say that we're gonna review only 2 top tiers, because if we're gonna review full tier list, it will take a lot of time. And also talking about top tier, in many games when it comes to meta weapons, these weapons require some skill from you, and this case is not exception. First of all, we're gonna start from as well. If we look at numbers, it has 1 tap potential on head, it needs only 2 shots in body and 5 shots in arms. And combined with its rate of fire, it gives us one of the best time to kills in game. But you might ask, what about damage drop off, because it goes down pretty fast. And I tested everything. First of all, important thing to mention that in PvP the maximum distance that we can get is 249 feet, and Swal doesn't have any problems with damage drop-off in PvP. It one-taps on distance up to 304 feet, it needs 2 shots on distance up to 490 feet, arms damage, it needs 5 bullets on distance up to 258 feet. Now let's look at recoil. Vertical recoil is pretty low. But if we look at horizontal recoil, it slightly goes to the right side. But it's still pretty easy to control. So if you can control recoil, this weapon shows really great performance. Next weapon is SR2M, new SMG, and if you look only at numbers, it feels like better version of Asval, because it has better velocity, better range, almost the same damage, worse dispersion. But also we have faster rate of fire. But if we look at damage drop-off, it doesn't have problems in PvP with headshot damage, it doesn't have problems with body damage, but it has small problems with arms damage, because after 192 feet it will need 6 bullets instead of 5. But still it's pretty enough for PvP, because in most cases you won't shoot on such distances. But there is another problem with this weapon. If we look at horizontal recoil, it's almost the same. It goes to the right side as well. And if we look at vertical recoil, it's even lower than Asval has. There is one problem about vertical recoil, that it can be unconstant. You probably noticed that it was pretty slow here, and then it sped up in this point, and it might sound like not a big problem, but when you're spraying enemy and suddenly recoil changes, it might be really painful for you. So in this case I recommend such build: heaviest suppressor, top component with optic, LEA stock, 30x mag, which not only increases mag size, but also increases M reserve in general. Then we need to put side rail on both sides of handguard, and on one side rail we need to put this flashlight, which is the heaviest one. And in this case we are not only decreasing vertical recoil, but also, in case of recoil suddenly changes, it won't be that uncomfortable. And next here we have SR3M. SR3M in general is the same as well, but with worse velocity and range, and because of that it has worse damage drop-off. It has 1 tap potential on distance up to 184 feet, which is pretty enough for PvP. It doesn't have problem with body damage, and on distance after 134 feet it will require 6 bullets in arms instead of 5. And another difference that to use SR3M you need only level 34, while Asval it requires level 65. So in this way you can experience the same gameplay as with Asval, and if you really like it, you can buy it in future when you reach level 65. Next we have MP9. Even though it has the fastest rate of fire and fastest time to kill, it has 3 problems. First of all, damage drop-off. It has 1 tap potential distance on 220 feet. It doesn't have problems with body damage, but it has damage drop-off in arms damage. It kills with 5 shots in arms only on distance up to 112, which still will be pretty enough for most cases. But there is a bigger problem about this weapon, which is horizontal recoil. It might be really good on close distances, but when it comes to shooting through narrow spaces, for example, or when your opponent is behind some cover, it might be a big problem. And also because of high RPM, it's not really good for holding angles and pre-firing, because it drains mag really fast. So if you wanna pre-fire and at the same time you don't wanna waste your ammo, you can try tapping like this. But still, because this weapon is not really usable in all situations, it doesn't deserve to be in top tier, but it deserves to be pretty close to it. Next weapon is MP5. It has pretty fast rate of fire, pretty fast partial reload, good damage. It doesn't have any problems with damage drop-off in PvP. Talking about recoil, it has pretty low vertical recoil. And also it has really low horizontal recoil. I would say it doesn't have it at all. But there is one problem about MP5, it's muzzle flash. For now MP5 doesn't have any suppressors or flash hiders, so the only thing I can recommend is to use some riser and optic on top of it. And in this way muzzle flash will be less distracting. And the last weapon that we're gonna look at in PvP tier list is G36. And in general I would say that this weapon is the best for now. If you don't know what weapon you should use, you can try this one. And G86 has a really low recoil. It has even lower vertical recoil than a K105. New K105, I mean. And also it has really low horizontal recoil. Additionally, it has really fast partial reload time, but slow empty reload time. But it's not a big issue since partial reload happens more often. Also, if you look at damage, we can see that it needs 2 shots in body and 5 shots in arms, but actually it's a lie. Talking about body damage, it kills with 2 shots only a distance up to 39 feet. Even if your opponent stands right in front of you, you won't be able to kill him with 5 shots. So don't look at this number. Now we're moving to open world tier list. Before we start, I would like to say that this is a universal tier list. So for example, M110 is really great for long distances, but I think you won't argue with me that if you are alerted compound, for example, you are being pushed by enemies and you have to fight on short distances, any weapon with afterfire will be better than this one. So that's how my tier list was made. And in top tier we have C7 and OK3. Overall, both of these weapons are pretty the same. They have the same muzzle velocity, they have the same range, but they have few differences, which is rate of fire. OK3 has faster partial reload, OK3 has lower vertical recoil, but worse horizontal recoil. So in general, I would say they're almost the same, so it's completely your choice what should you choose. Personally, I prefer OK3. In the same tier we have AK-74 with better range and better damage as well. But in the same time it has worse recoil and much worse muzzle velocity. But still, because of different range and different damage, they have differences in maximum distance of one-tap potential. So for example, maximum distance of AK-74 is 977, meanwhile the maximum distance of C7 and OK3 is 837 feet. Next we are moving to lower tier. We have FAMAS here. There is nothing much to say about this weapon, it just has worse velocity and range. Next weapon is FAL, and I would definitely put this weapon in top tier if it had access to suppressors. FAL has pretty good velocity and range, pretty good damage and head, which allows it to one-tap enemies with 115 HP. It has 30 round mag, it has really fast partial reload time. In the same tier we have M110, it has better damage and head, better range, also it has access to suppressor, but it has slower partial reload time, it has smaller mag size, and it doesn't have afterfire mode, which makes it not really comfortable to use if you are alerted compound, for example, and you have to shoot on short distances. Also I would like to mention L85A2. For now, among 556 weapons, it has the best velocity and range, but the main problem is that it doesn't have access to suppressors. Now we're moving to pistols. In S tier we have MK27 and APB. Talking about new pistol, it's the only pistol that has auto-fire mode, it has pretty fast rate of fire, it has one-tap potential, but there is one thing, it's that it's really on short distance, which is only 8 feet, so basically you need 2 shots in head. And also APB has pretty high recoil, but it's still not really hard to control. So I recommend to put everything you can, which is suppressor and also stock. And in the same tier we have MK27, even though it doesn't have afterfire like APB, but it has access to optics, which makes it really comfortable to use on all distances. In the lower tier we have G17. Compared to new Glock it has slower rate of fire, but in the same time it has better velocity and range. And because of that they have different damage drop-off. So G17 has longer distance of one tap, it kills in body with 2 shots on longer distance as well, and same goes with arms damage. But in most cases use pistols only when you're out of ammo on your primary and you have enemy in front of you, so it doesn't really matter about this distance. In open world tier list we have a little bit different situation. In S tier we have G17. Rate of fire doesn't really matter in this game mode, so G17 will be the best choice here because it has pretty good damage drop-off. In lower tier we have MK27, which also has access to optics, but it has worse velocity and range, which makes it worse version of G17. And the next tiers we have M17, Deagle, which have pretty good damage, but they don't have access to suppressors, and APB, which does have, but it has pretty low damage. And that's all for today. If you found my video useful, leave a like and some comment, it helps a lot with video promotion. Join my Discord server. If you really like my content, you can support me on Boosty, and see you next time.